to everyone yang berbahagia, Professor Emeritus Engineer Dr. Suhaimi Abdul Talib, our speaker for today's webinar. Assistant Professor Dr. Arbaiyah binti Abdul Razak, the Covering Director for CPD. Fellow colleagues, professors, associate professors, doctors, brothers and sisters, welcome to today's CPD webinar organized by the Professional Development Unit of the Center for Professional Development, CPD IIUM. I am Dr. Muhammad Ashraf bin Rostam, the Deputy Director for PDU of the CPD, and I will be the moderator for today. Before we begin our session, let us seek blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for today's program to run smoothly and benefit of all of us, inshallah. I would like to invite everyone to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Brothers and sisters, in today's evolving academic landscape, the long-term sustainability of a university depends not only on its current achievements, but on its ability to intentionally develop future leaders. Succession planning and academic mentorships are therefore not optional. They are strategic priorities that support staff development, ensure continuity, and drive sustainable growth within institutions like IIUM. Effective mentorship provides a structured pathways for academics to grow professionally, refine their expertise, and prepare for future leadership roles. At the same time, it requires a clear understanding of the roles and responsibility of both mentors and mentees in cultivating academic excellence, strengthening professional capacity, and nurturing leadership at the departmental and kuliah level. Today's webinar, Cultivating Successors, Effective Academic Mentorship, invites us to critically reflect on how mentorship practices can be strengthened to support long-term succession planning, while also examining how individuals, both mentors and mentees, can actively contribute to building a sustainable academic ecosystem. At the end of the session, participants will be able to evaluate the strategic importance of academic mentorship practices in supporting staff development, long-term succession planning, and sustainable growth within academia at IIUM, analyze the roles and responsibilities of mentors and mentees in cultivating academic excellence, professional growth, and future leadership at the departmental and kuliah levels. A side note to our speaker, Prof. Suhaimi, mostly when we conduct our webinars, we will conduct post-evaluation, and the demography or the participants that attend, majority will be those who have experienced more than 10 years in teaching in IIUM. So inshallah, and I believe that today's session will be the same demography, and hopefully inshallah, all of us will benefit with regards to becoming a mentor as well as understanding the roles of mentee. So allow me to have the honor to read a brief introduction of our distinguished speaker. Professor Dr. Suhaimi Abdul Talib joined University of Technology Mara, UiTM, formerly known as ITM, in 1988. He received his bachelor's honours in civil engineering in 1986 from the University of Melbourne, Australia. In 1996, he obtained his Master's of Science in Water and Environmental Management with distinction from the University of Loughborough in UK. And in 2002, he completed his PhD in Water and Wastewater Engineering at the University Technology Malaysia. Prior to leaving UiTM on the 2nd of December 2022, he was involved in teaching courses associated with civil engineering programs. Apart from teaching, he was also actively involved in supervision of student projects at bachelor's, master's, and doctoral level. His immediate past position was the Assistant Vice-Chancellor for the College of Engineering at UiTM Shah Alam. Prior to that, he had served as the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Academic and International at UiTM Malaysia. He had also been entrusted with various positions of academic leadership within UiTM, with previously holding the post of Assistant Vice-Chancellor, Facilities Development and Management and ICT, Assistant Vice-Chancellor, Puncak Alam and Puncak Perdana Campus, as well as various posts of leadership within the Faculty of Engineering. He was a visiting professor at UiTM, a visiting professor at the Heidelberg University of Applied Sciences, Germany, a visiting research fellow at the University of New South Wales, Australia, and an adjunct professor at Taylor's University, Malaysia. Currently, he is an adjunct professor at Help University, Malaysia, and an adjunct professor at UNITA International University, Malaysia. In relation to training, he had developed training modules on learning outcomes and constructive alignment, modules for certified quality assurance officers in higher education, modules for the training of MQA panel of assessors, and modules for international quality assurance officers in higher education. In the area of quality assurance, he had been involved as chair and team member for institutional audits for Institution of Higher Learning in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Bangladesh. In 2023, he was appointed as the chair to the panel of assessors for compliance audit for self-accrediting university for UiTM, MMU, and International Islamic University, Malaysia, IIM. Apart from the management positions held during his service with UiTM, he had been involved in governance and policy making through his involvement in various boards and councils, such as chairman for the boards of directors for UiTM Private Education, Sendirian Berhad, and Akari Software Asia Pacific, Sendirian Berhad. With Professor Dr. Suhaimi's vast involvement and impactful leadership, we are honored to learn how he has built a lasting legacy and inspired the growth of future generations. Some important notes for our participants. TD points will be awarded to those who fill in the I attend, recorded in Zoom attendance for a minimum certain duration, and fill in the evaluation form within 24 hours after this program. With that, I would like to welcome our speaker, Prof. Suhaimi, to deliver the talk. Please welcome, Prof.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Ashraf. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And salam sejahtera. Perhaps it's not too late for me to wish Selamat Hari Raya to all our Muslim colleagues. First and foremost, I would like to thank IUM for inviting me to share this knowledge and experience on mentoring and succession planning. Basically, what I'm going to share with you is the things that I have undergone through myself and what I've done in terms of mentoring of academic staff. This is basically focusing on academic staff. So if you could give me a second for me to bring up my slides. Ashraf,
Yep.
Are you seeing this?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right, let's get started. We're going to spend approximately 1 hour, 30 minutes or so that I can leave a little bit of time for discussion. We're going to talk about mentorship, mainly mentorship and to create successes. The moderator has said that we want to focus on the successes for leadership. But I would like to expand that a little bit. Yes, successes for leadership is important, but we also need to prepare successes for the subject matter experts, because that is the institutional knowledge, that is the institutional strength that we need to keep on advancing and to have continuity with that. So bear in mind, I'll be focusing on two, that is the teaching and learning, and then also on the research and other aspects of tasks and roles that is being given to academic staff. Dr. Muhammad Ashraf mentioned two learning outcomes. The two learning outcomes that he mentions fall under my second learning outcome. So in order to deliver this, I need to give the context. So my first learning outcome is for participants to relate your academic duties and responsibility to career progression. When we talk about succession planning, we need to look at both sides. The staff, they have their own ambition, they have their own target, they have their own personal development, personal goals. And we also have the institutional goals on the other hand. So we need to balance between these two. So basically, if we are going to be successful, it has to be win-win for both parties, the lecturers and also the institution. And the second part is to identify and plan development of essential competencies in academia. So these are the two learning outcomes. So based on that, you see that my presentation outline, I focus mainly on the two things: roles, responsibility, and competencies, and effectiveness on mentorship in developing competencies. So let's go into the first bullet, which is the introduction. So why we need to cultivate successors? Universities, teaching institutions, research institutes, and all that, we need to make sure that the leadership, institutional knowledge, and future leaders are being groomed, so that there is continuity within the institution. The institution signifies a particular criteria or particular DNA. In terms of UIA, I think you're talking about Islamization of knowledge. That is one of the important reason why you are being established. And we have come so far. That you have established a name globally, and you have your alumni making significant contribution in various countries. They are holding very important positions in their respective countries. This is a legacy that you leave behind. IUM has created, and we would like to see this contribution globally keeps on expanding, and then it keeps on enhancing. So this is the reason why, in terms of IUM, you need to play this role to ensure the continuity of the contribution that has been made by IIUM, not only in Malaysia, but towards the global Islamic community. And let us pause for a while and look at the things that have taken up our time and effort. As academics, we are being expected to teach and make preparation of teaching. So if I can, there is a small diagram over here, which I will expand in a short while. Okay. Now, in general, we are expected to teach, because the main role of the university is basically to educate and to actually develop talent. Develop talent with knowledge and skills of discipline, having high moral values. So this is what is expected of us. So I'm using this example from UiTM based on this requirement of needing to create citizens with knowledge and skills of the discipline, having high moral standards. Then we say that we need to make sure that the lecturers do actually teach, educate, train, teach, educate, train, or whatever you want to call it. There are subtle differences between the terminologies, and this is where we call amanah tugas syarahan. In UiTM, we do not call the workload of beban tugas. We do not call it beban. We take it as a responsibility. Teaching and learning within the system in the university should be regarded as responsibility and accountability. So it breaks down into two parts: the actual teaching and the preparation for teaching. So this becomes amanah tugas syarahan. And apart from that, lecturers are also expected to supervise students. They are expected to do research, and they are expected to contribute to the university and also to society. So we classify this as K1, K2, and K3. And what we did was we give equivalent hours. We give equivalent hours to each of these activities, and at the end of the day, we expect our lecturers to be able to show that they have contributed 39 hours a week, at least 39 hours a week. So these are basically the roles that we are doing at the university. Right. This part is looking at teaching and preparation for teaching. The second part, this normally comes in the form of KPIs, given by the university's management, and this would involve your supervision, your research, your publication, and your service. This is what, from the previous slide, it comes under K1, K2, and K3. And next, we also need to make sure that our personal well-being, our progression of our career, and we need to ensure that along the line, we will be able to move from one stage of being a lecturer to senior lecturer, associate professor, and finally professor. And we are also we should also be mindful that the lecturers must also ensure that the annual performance is in line with the university's requirement. So we're talking about teaching and learning, supervision, research, and not only that, the annual performance that will lead to your promotion. So these are the things that have taken up our time and effort while working at the university. Now, every now and then, university will tell us we need to do something new. We need to do something else. And these requirements are actually coming from external bodies, such as the professional bodies, Ministry of Higher Education, and the Malaysian Qualifications Agency. For example, in this year alone, the last 2 years alone, we have quite a number of documents coming in. For example, this year we had this Malaysian higher education plan that has been released. And then, of course, MQA has released the Malaysian Qualification Framework, the updated version of 2024, which requires us to bring on global sustainability agenda into our curriculum, which is the SDG and the ESD. And MQA 2024 also requires us to bring in values-based education. So basically, while we are doing our core business, which is 1, 2, and 3 up here, the teaching and learning, supervision, research, publication services, and to ensure that we perform our annual duties. And we are also having requirements imposed upon us externally in addition to the internal requirements. So we got to keep this in mind, whether mentee or mentor, we need to know this is the landscape that we are operating in. All right. And this is from New Zealand. New Zealand, more or less, they are saying the diagram that I showed you from UiTM it looks manageable. But if you look at this diagram that I'm showing you now, we're still focusing on the same thing, teaching and learning, research, which involves supervision, publications, and so on, and service. But when they start, giving out more details for each of these, then you see it's quite a lot of things that we have to do. And most often, you will find that our lecturers are being inundated with work. We are, some people use the term, we are overworked and underpaid. Overworked and underpaid because there are so many things to be done. And this is where young lecturers may feel that they are not in the right profession. And this is where the role of the mentor comes in to guide the lecturers to prioritize and focus the activities in stages so that they can actually plan their career progression. And this is what has come out in the newspaper, Pensyarah Manusia Bukan Mesin. And then 30,000 lecturers are having, are at the risk of working under stress. So this is the scenario that we have. And how do we manage this? How do we manage this? So let us look at the roles, responsibility, and competencies that are required for academicians. The academic progression is more or less you go through your undergraduate and then you go to the graduate studies and you get your PhD. And once you get your PhD, you can work in the industry or in the university. And then if you continue on to work in the university, you become assistant professor, senior lecturer, associate professor, professor, and finally, if you carry on 20, 30 years as professor, 10 years and above as professors in some universities, you'll be granted the Emeritus status. And then sometimes you go on after retirement, you sit on the various boards of the universities or companies. So this is more or less the career progression in a linear form. And now, in order to move from your initial role as an academician to finally become a professor, you need to give yourself time. It is a process. It is a process, and you evolve. You evolve in terms of maturity, in terms of your competencies, in terms of your wisdom. So basically, you need to give yourself time, and don't rush, so that it takes a natural course. But when I say don't rush, it doesn't mean that you don't have to plan. You have to plan, and in that planning, you must give yourself enough time. And most of the time, I notice that the younger generation, they focus on speed. They want to get there as quickly as possible. My suggestion is shift your views. Instead of going for speed, make sure you focus on what we want to do. So, for example, my focus is basically, I will tell you why my focus is like this towards the end of my presentation. When I tell you the events that has occurred to me that has made a very big impact in my career, my focus is basically to make sure that I do what I do sincerely. So basically, I do what I do sincerely, and what I want is that I must be able to stand before my creator and tell him what I've done with the blessings that he's bestowed on me, and how I make use of those blessings, and how I make life different for other people. Basically, the target, my focus is, the direction is to make full use of my position at the university to do good. Amal Jariah, Amal Ma'ruf, Nahi Munkar. So basically, this is what I will tell you why I came to that conclusion earlier on in my career towards the end of the presentation. Now, again, this is another form. You basically start your career with the university, and first thing you have to make sure that you are good at is your teaching and teaching skills, knowledge on teaching skills, and then slowly you will evolve and you will go into research, innovation, and then you will move into leadership roles at basically departmental levels, and finally you take leadership roles in teaching. You become program leaders, you take leadership roles in research, you become the project leaders, and finally, to some, not all, to some, you will take up academic leadership as deans, DVCs, and VCs. That is basically the progression. So when we talk about academician, here I am borrowing the concept. I'm borrowing the concept from USM. I think Dr. Asma and her team at USM at that time were responsible for developing this concept of academician, the 3R, the relevant, respected, and the referred academic. So when they used this concept, I took that concept and translated how to translate. I took that and then transformed that into action plan to be used in UiTM. So I'm sharing this with you. Okay. When you talk about the relevant academic, you must stay relevant as an academician. You need to ask yourself the role that we are playing now. In the 90s and early 2000, the role of academician is basically lecturing, going into the classroom, giving lectures. But things have changed now. If you want to remain relevant, you see, the role of sharing information is almost obsolete, because students can get information almost at their fingertips. Almost at their fingertips. You need to guide them on what to do with the information. So in other words, we need to shift our role from just sharing information, from just giving lectures, to becoming instructional designers. How to make sure that the knowledge that they have, the information that they have, is actually being used, can be used to solve certain problems, can be used to bring benefit to society. So the relevant academic must change from just lecturer sharing information to a lecturer capable of designing learning activities inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And it follows that now the lectures, to be relevant, you have to be updated with the current delivery, curriculum design and delivery method of the 21st century learning, taking into account the ways how this Gen Z are adapting, are learning. Okay, the way that they learn is not the same as how students learned 15 years ago. So we need to take into consideration not only that you have to become instructional designers, but now you must be able to come up with instructional design that make use of technology, that capitalize or leverages on technology. And then you need to have the scholarship of teaching and learning, meaning that the teaching and learning does not stop as an endpoint. So you keep on studying effective ways. You have to evaluate the effectiveness, the efficiency of your teaching and learning methods, and then find ways and means, innovate your teaching and learning methods so that you will be able to come up with better ways. And then you should also be able to generate more knowledge, new knowledge from your research activities. So this is the scholarship of teaching and learning. So by doing this, you will keep yourself relevant. You keep yourself relevant. And the other thing is that you need to continuously upskill your knowledge and your skills. So this is what I suppose Dr. Muhammad Ashraf is doing through the CPD, Center for Professional Development at IIUM. So basically, to remain relevant, you need to understand this, that whatever that we were doing 15 years ago needs to change, and we need to look at the current group of students, current cohort of students, how they behave, how they prefer to study, and so on. And then we have to start changing, we have to start innovating our teaching and learning methods. Now, to ensure relevance, we need to understand that we have to move from teacher-centered to student-centered, and now we're talking about student-driven. And this is where, when I was back at UiTM after my retirement, I came back for a two-year contract position to lead the College of Engineering. This is where we start talking about, can the students negotiate their learning activities, student-driven, okay? So can the student negotiate with the lecturers? Can the student negotiate with the lecturers on the assessment? So on the projects. So these are the things that I've tried to do at UiTM, but not as a whole. We tried at certain faculties now. We know that I think you are aware that in engineering, we have integrated design project, and our engineering students participate in the, like Solar Challenge in Australia and all those things. So we get this, we give flexibility to students who participate in international events such as that. The scope of work involve more or less like integrated design project. If they are involved in that, the involvement of that project is the integrated design project. So they need not do the formal curriculum. So whatever things they do in the international competition, they will write it as a report, and then they will be, make presentation during the final year project, and that will be considered as the final year project. And again, these are things that we try to do, and I think in future more and more of this will come. More and more of this will come into the picture. So you need to ensure your role as a lecturer in terms of teaching and learning, you are relevant with the Gen Y and digital natives, diverse learners. Your learning can take place anywhere. This is micro credentials and all that, and work-based learning. So these are the things that we have to ensure that our lecturers are capable of doing. And I know that in IIUM, you have things like Usrah in action. Usrah in action. Perhaps someday Usrah in action can be considered as a formal credit, not just co-curriculum or whatever. And things like that, community engagement. I think IIUM is very strong in student engaging in societies. And these are the sort of things, learning outside the classroom. And we need to learn on how to create those learning activities within society with the proper learning outcome, which can contribute to the attainment of the program learning outcome. And then based on this, we can actually use that as a credit in the curriculum. The curriculum is becoming more and more flexible. I think MQA is moving in that direction. It will take time, but if you do this now, and then, for example, you see MQF 2024 now allows you to take courses offered by the industry and put it in your curriculum up to 70% of the curriculum. So standalone micro-credentials can come in. So these are the kind of flexibilities that can be brought in. So this is to ensure relevance in teaching and learning. So what are the minimum expectations for the relevant academician? I would categorize them as the lecturer and senior lecturer. And for the lecturers, I would say that they would be familiarizing themselves as an academician. They should be able to deliver a syllabus. Given the syllabus, they should be able to deliver. They should be able to become a member of research team, member of a committee within the department, and if it comes to publication, they should be able to contribute as a co-author. And for senior lecturers, they should acquire the PhD, acquire professional qualifications in engineering. A senior lecturer, I would expect them to have to be a professional engineer, and then they should be able to design or review a syllabus. They should be able to lead a research team for internal grants, lead committee at faculty level, and then they should be able to develop industry networking. In terms of publication, they can become author, the main author or the co-author. So this is minimum expectation for lecturer and senior lecturer. This is to ensure that you are relevant to your position. So this is the relevant academic. And then we move to the next stage, the respected academic. These are respected academic in terms of academic leadership. You are intellectual and academic leadership. It is based on the intellectual and academic leadership and research leadership and institutional leadership. Leadership at HAP can be leadership at HAP, national level, at KPT, or at MQA, or at international level. These are people who knows the way, goes the way, and they shows the way. So these are respected academics. You are talking about they construct their professional presence. They create reputation. They are visible. People know them. People know them. So in other words, your presence is acknowledged among your community. Community means if you are an architect, the community of architects acknowledge your presence, know you, not only within Malaysia, but also in the region and also international. So this is talking about the second stage relevant. This is now respected. And respected, I would say that these are the people at the associate professor and professorial level. And these are the people who should, in terms of curriculum development, they should be able to design or review a curriculum now. They should be able to lead a research team for external grants, lead a committee at the university or national level, and they should establish a wide industry networking, and they should mainly be the main author in writing. They are the main contributor. So this is the expectation. These are minimum expectation. And for professors, it's like associate professor, but now ability to lead at the university and national level, high visibility in the field of expertise or subject area, and you have developed an international standing. You are regularly being invited as a keynote, and you are highly cited. So this is where I say that the line or the criteria that we use to say that you are a respected academic. And then we go to the referred academic. People sought after your expertise, and sought after for partnerships, sought after for collaborative and consultative activities, sought after in community engagement, and then sought after people wants you to come and spend time with them for mobility, and then your involvement would be at the national or transnational involvement. So this is what we call we criteria we use to classify them as the referred academic. And in terms of the position that you hold at the university, these are basically the Professor Ulung, the Professor Ulung. These are distinguished professors, and the minimum expectation for them are basically as professors, but with ability to lead at national and international level. They are well known in the field of expertise or subject area, and have developed a reputable international standing. So that is the expectation that we hope the individual can display if they are referred to as the referred academic. Okay. And the career progression and expectation, as you have seen just now, I've shown you lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor, distinguished professors. Senior lecturer and lecturer, basically, they are more operational and with expectations on innovation. And associate professor, distinguished, they are more into innovation, pioneering, and strategic contribution. And of course, there is one more level, the royal professor. We just lost Almarhum Syed Nakib recently. And royal professor, basically, these are outstanding individuals, exemplary contribution that constitute game changer at the national and international level. So like Nku Aziz come up with the Koperasi, come up with Tabung Haji. So these are basically the contributions expected of a royal professor, making basically constituting game changer at national and international level. So this is the career progression from lecturer to the royal professor. Okay. I have this career progression and capabilities. On the left-hand side, this is talking about curriculum delivery. On the right-hand side, we're talking about your position, your progression in terms of curriculum design, program management, program reviews. Let's look at curriculum delivery and assessment. Expectation is you should be able, from the lower part, from the relevant academic, you should be able to develop the CLOs, develop the content, develop multiple delivery method, develop domain-based assessment tools, documentation and this examination, external examiners, you become subject panel experts and so on. In terms of curriculum design, program management, basically you should be able to contribute as a committee or chairman for curriculum development or review. You should be able to serve as a chair or member of the academic board, university curriculum committee, panel of assessors for universities and regulators, committee at ministry or MQA level, and then you can also become an international expert. So why do I take time to go through this? Because you need to understand this is the pathway that you have to go. And for mentors, you need to know at what stage your mentee is currently at, and then you got to chart out the plan so that they will be what should they be able to achieve, where should they be able to go in the next 15 years. And then you will see that, okay, the short-term plan for the first 3 to 5 years, medium term, 5 to 10 years, and then eventually, and what you want to have now is a target that as a professor, you should have mentees that you will bring them up from senior lecturer to associate professor and finally to professor before you retire. And then they will carry on that role by appointing mentees of their own. So dia jadi amal jariah. So this becomes the amal jariah for you. Okay, effective mentorship in developing competencies. Okay, focus of succession planning. Academic staff should be mentored and prepared to ensure continuity of subject matter expert. I think you have experienced this in several of your kuliah. I think at one time or another, you will experience that the senior staff have retired. And sometimes 2 or 3 staff retire within the same area of expertise, leaving a vacuum. So we need to mentor succession planning. First and foremost, at the foundation level, at the basic level, is continuity of subject matter expert. And then continuity of the research areas. So I think IUM, like any other universities, you have centers of research, centers of excellence. And these centers of excellence, it used to be, I think about 10 years, 12 years back, 10 to 15 years back, it depended on a certain individual. As long as the individual is there, the center is alive. The minute that individual leaves, the center is dead. Because the center was established around a single personality. So this has now changed. From my observations, I see that most of the research centers or excellence centers in our universities now, you have this mix of junior, medium, and the senior researchers. I think this is good because of the MIRA requirement requires that there must be an age spread in the research centers, in the centers of excellence, so that there will be continuity of research. And then continuity of faculty-based leadership. So you need to groom, especially the deans. The deans, you should be looking at your program leaders, by whatever name you call them, program leaders, program coordinators, program managers, by whatever name it's been called. These are the people that you look, and those with potential, you want to groom them to become deputy deans, and eventually they can take over the deanship. And you must also identify staff in your kuliah who are capable, who have very good, potential, shows good potential to be positioned at the university level. And as deans, you should also be promoting them, pushing them towards position at the university level. For example, Dr. Muhammad Ashraf is now sitting in the CPD. So CPD is considered the university level. So this is what leadership, this is what mentorship is about. And continuity at institutional-based leadership. This is the what I've said, the executive leadership. This is assistant vice-chancellor, deputy vice-chancellor, and so on. And of course, in order to understand the succession planning, we need to understand the growth journey. Both mentor and mentee need to acknowledge the phases of the growth journey. Most of the time you are in the comfort zone. Comfort zone, you feel safe and in control. And then when instruction comes, when a new KPI comes in, you have to move, then you are going through the fear zone. Can I produce four Q1 papers? You see, can I produce this? This new requirement has come in, and we got to take into consideration. We got to bring into our classroom ESD. We got to bring into our classroom SDG. So these sort of things, new requirements, and then you move into the fear zone, and hopefully the fear zone, if you can keep it smaller, and then they move into the learning zone. So mentor must understand this. If you try to develop them, you remember my minimum expectation of a senior lecturer, and then associate professor and professor. Or let's say they are a senior lecturer. You are mentoring a senior lecturer, and then you want to move them into the minimum expectation of a associate professor. In other words, from just becoming a member of committee, now you want them to lead the committee. From just becoming a member of the research team, now you want them. So they akan takut. They feel, I'm not confident lah, takut lah, tak nak lah. So this sort of excuses will come. So you need to understand that there is a fear zone, and you need to guide them, a little bit of hand-holding, bring them out of the fear zone into the learning zone. And this is where you handheld them, the process of handholding will help them to expand into the new environment with comfort, and then the fear will gradually disappear because confidence will come in. And once you have done that, and then you can slowly let them go, and then you will see that they will go into the growth zone. So you need to differentiate growth, progress, and success. What I say is this. Okay, I'm the mentor to Dr. Muhammad Ashraf, and then when I mentor him, at the first stage is basically, I mentor him, and he write papers, and then for conference proceeding, attending conference. So he keeps on doing more and more and more and more of that, more and more of the same thing. So that is basically growth. That is not progress. Progress would mean that he moves on, and then he knows that, okay, now the basic is there, writing the papers for conference proceedings. The next stage is to go into journals, okay, into journals, perhaps the normal journal first, and then later on move into the tier 2, Q2 and Q1 journals. So if you move towards that direction, then you're having progress. Success is when the journals are making impact, when people are citing. So the mentor needs to know that while you take your mentee through this journey, whether your mentee is experiencing growth, progress, or success, the mentee may not be able to see this. The mentor must see this, and the mentor must guide the mentee going through the growth process, progress, and success. Okay, so we need to understand this journey. What else do we need to understand? We need to understand that there are many facets of knowledge acquisition and delivery. So as mentor, let us go back to the fundamental. Let us go back to the fundamental, what the Quran teaches us. What the Quran teaches us in terms of learning, in terms of acquiring knowledge. And the Quran teaches us we start by reading. So in other words, knowledge for academician, you must read. There is no way you can become an academician if you do not want to read. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is to make observation. Okay, we make observation on how things are being done. So take your mentee through and make them observe. Okay, nampak tak orang tu? You see that person, how he progress. You see how this particular personality, how he develops the area of expertise, and how his papers, how his papers, the earlier papers was focusing on this, the next paper, and then you observe how they do things, and then next is you learn from others. You need to tell your mentee, we need to learn from others. Kita tak semua pandai sendiri. We're not all knowing. And then after that, we explore. We go do benchmarking, we see how people do things, and then we travel and see, and then we reason and reflect. Yeah. So all these are basically the stages that has been taught to us through the Quran. So I think this is what the mentor needs to know, the many facets of knowledge acquisition and delivery. Yeah. All academic staff needs to embrace this. Yeah. This is also what I use for my PhD students. For my PhD students, say, okay, first you do this, you recite, in other words, literature review. Next, you see, observe the phenomena that you are going to study, why this is happening, and then you learn from others, and then you go out, you make benchmarking, you travel, and then after that you reason and reflect. So this basically is a process that has been taught to us through the Quran. Okay. And then you need to understand the shift. You need to understand the shift that we are experiencing from the 20th to 21st century. Previously, the role of university is to provide education. Now it has changed. Graduate employability is becoming important. Now, not just producing graduates, we need to make sure that they are principal global citizens. Previously, money given to us, our role is to finish off the budget. Now we talk about income generation. We talk about financial sustainability. Pardon me for the spelling mistake. Yeah? And then previously we talked about quality teaching. Now we talk about accreditation, ranking, and rating. So these are the changes. And these changes are important because mainly the mentor have gone through these stages. The mentee would have come in at the current situation. So to become a mentor, you first must change you must change to adapt to the changes that are occurring in the higher education landscape. Okay. The areas for mentorship. The areas for mentorship, we talked about for scholarship of teaching and learning, research innovation, academic leadership, deans, chairs of committees, program directors, and so on. And then executive leadership, this is at university level. And of course, we have the administrative and operational leadership. And these are for the academics, and the light blue is basically for the non-academics. Our focus is mainly on the purple writings. Scholarship of teaching and learning, research innovation, academic leadership, and executive leadership. Okay, concepts that mentors need to consider. The notion of nature versus nurture. So basically, some people says that, oh, that person is naturally a leader. That person, he is naturally a writer. Natural competency is basically things like personality and traits that are in our nature. But the competencies that we want to develop as academicians, this needs to be nurtured. This needs to be nurtured. And this is where the mentor plays a very important role. The department plays a very important role in creating the environment. The university plays an important role for creating the environment. It must create an enabling environment so that we will be able to nurture our mentee, nurture our staff. So that is number one concept. There is no such thing. Oh, naturally, naturally he's a good writer. No. It doesn't happen like that. You need to nurture them to become a good writer. You need to nurture them to become an effective and charismatic lecturer in terms of teaching. Yeah. Next, you talk about skill set, mindset, and tool set. Mindset deals with belief, thoughts, perceptions, and attitude. This is what you want to do. This is what you want to deliver, you wish to do. And in order to do what you want to do good, you need to have these skill sets. Your skill sets must be there, and you must also have the tools to do it. So basically, in order to be successful, mentors, remember, you need to get the mentee to have the right mindset. You need your mentee to have the right skill sets. You need to give the mentee the right tool set. Then you can have a good result. Otherwise, then you will not be able to come up with a good results. And interpersonal and intrapersonal characteristics. Interpersonal is how they interact with other people. Intrapersonal is basically dealing with yourself, dealing with yourself, more or less your time management, self-motivation, emotional intelligence, and so on. And then you also talk about proven and potential talent. Potential is high, but performance is slow. Ini potential sajalah. But what we want is basically if you can have in this top right-hand corner, high potential, high performer, and then the high performer and high potential. So we want first identify where your mentee is, and then you try to move them to the right and upwards. And we need to balance the individual talent and HCP aspiration. As I've mentioned earlier, it has to be both win-win for the staff and win-win for the university. So these are some of the concepts that you must consider as mentor. Now let's go into the nitty-gritty of things. Let us now focus on teaching and learning. Let us focus on teaching and learning. Research and innovation will come later, a little bit later. Let us now focus for teaching and learning first. Now, teaching and learning, we need to make sure that our mentee, they have access to teaching practices. I think CPD is doing this well. And then the mentor should also encourage the mentee to innovate the teaching and learning practices and then share their practices. What we do not want to do is the mentor is still using the methods of teaching 20 years ago. So the mentor must also realize that we already have a different breed of students now, and then there are a lot of enabling technology that allows us to deliver more effectively and so on, but without losing the spirit of berguru, without losing the spirit of berguru, the teacher-student relationship. And the student-centered learning approaches, this must come in very strongly, and the use of active learning, flipped classroom, as what they have practiced more than 100 years in Oxford, flipped classrooms, principles of constructive alignment, integration of digital learning technologies, integration of global sustainability agenda, and values-based education. So these are the focus areas, some of the focus areas that a mentor may want to pick up and see that, okay, For example, I would say that I have a mentee. I would like to take my mentee this particular semester to see how my mentee integrates global sustainability agenda and values-based education. Next semester, I want to have a look at how I want to see how my mentee brings up authentic and alternative assessment in their courses to evaluate the course learning outcome. Okay. If we don't look at this, I'm afraid that the lecture will stick to quiz, test, assignment, project. Quiz, test, assignment, project. The conventional way. Yeah. So these are the focus areas that you can do, and you can introduce teaching fellows that becomes mentor, and of course your CPD and director of teaching and learning may create platforms for mentors and mentee to interact. And the key output of by doing this is you will get teaching innovation initiatives, teaching workshops, and institutional teaching guidelines can also be developed through these activities. So that's one. Two, professional staff development. Okay. Professional development for staff. Staff development ensures continuous growth across academic careers. Now, early career academic staff, they come in, there must be orientation programs, and then mentorship of junior academic staff. Possibly, if you have you need to do this, you need to do this in a structured manner. I actually come up with a list was being prepared to match the mentee and mentor by first asking the senior members to nominate their mentee, and then by asking the mentees to nominate the mentors. So if the two lists coincide, then we have a good match already. And those that do not coincide, I have a committee to look, and we try to facilitate the matching of the mentor and the mentees. And then you may introduce teaching competency certification programs at the university level. And then you got to guide the mentees to balance between research and teaching, because sometimes the promotion criteria is biased towards research. So people are giving more attention to research because they are catching, they're trying to get into the research to fulfill the research criteria. But then they forgot that our basic role is to educate, to teach, and to train. Yeah. So we have to balance that. And then training for certification by professional bodies. In other words, for example, architects, they should provide mentors to train so that they can become architect that is registered with the Lembaga Architect Malaysia. Engineers, they should become professional engineers registered with the Board of Engineers with the IR punya qualification. So these are the areas. And then, of course, you got leadership development for academic staff to take over the position of deputy deans, deputy rector, and so on. And then by doing this, you will get improved teaching quality, stronger academic staff retention, clear career progression pathways. So this is on teaching and learning. What else can we do? Number 3, curriculum design and academic quality. Academic staff, by the time that they get to moving from senior lecturer to associate professor, they should be guided on program design. Now they can design because they've been teaching for more than 7 years. They have seen the curriculum, they have seen some of the courses, they have taught some of the courses. Now they have some involvement with the industry. They know the expectation of the industry. Now it's time for them to be able to design an academic program, to design the curriculum, or to review the curriculum, so that they are capable of reviewing a curriculum that is more relevant to the industry. And then they should be able to look at the delivery method that will honor the principle of constructive alignment and so on. So if you look at this aspect, when you mentor your staff to be able to do curriculum design, then what you will get at the end is for the kuliah, you will get updated academic program, and then you will be ready for accreditation, and then you will get stronger student learning outcome because involvement with the industry. So that is still talking about teaching and learning. And we should be also looking at teaching evaluation, and we need to get student feedback and course evaluation. I think this is being done at IUM because every semester you have your course level report, and then that will eventually contribute to the program level report. And peer observation in teaching. So I do not know whether this has been practiced at UiTM. We have student feedback through SUFO, and then we have peer Propense, where peers come in, the seniors come in and sit in your class, and then they provide comments on how you conduct the class in terms of professionalism, in terms of effectiveness, and so on. And we also have, I can't remember the acronym, you do your self-evaluation, and then of course the annual performance criteria being done by your boss. So in other words, you get four perspectives. You get four perspectives of teaching evaluation. Teaching evaluation and student feedback. And then you may have teaching portfolios and reflections. You may get your mentee to write a bit of reflection for the semester and see what they can do better. So the impact will be evidence-based teaching improvement, institutional culture of teaching excellence. The last thing on teaching and learning is recognition, incentives, and so on. So I think this is where the department, the kuliah or the university must provide incentive to do this and must celebrate success of this. So perhaps you can come up with Teaching Excellence Award, promotion criteria recognizing teaching impact, not just research papers, publication, and so on. And then you may provide teaching fellowships and grant, and then leadership pathways for educators. And you will get strong culture of teaching leadership in the university, and then you will get future academic leaders prepared. So the 5 points that I've given you is basically some of the things. It's not that you have to do all. The mentors, remember, this is just a guide to the framework, and you may look at the individual mentee and what is the strength and weaknesses of your mentee, and then you may look through in my list and you pick and choose of what your mentee requires. Remember, every mentee is different. And you cannot have, okay, those people coming to become my mentee, or 6, 7 of you will have to go through this regime. No, it cannot be like that. If you are mentoring, because I limit my senior staff to mentor not more than 5 junior staff. Dia biasanya 2-3 orang saja, 2 or 3, and when they do that, they have the plan for individual mentees based on where the mentees are and based on the strength and weaknesses of the mentees. So this is teaching and learning. This is teaching and learning. Next, this is a tool that I use to go outside teaching and learning. And this is where for supervision, for research, for collaboration, for consultation, and so on. And I think you may have heard this term before. The scholarship map. The scholarship map, this is basically a map or a listing of expertise in a particular kuliah, in a particular department. For example, I have civil engineering here. These are the areas that we want to focus: building information modeling, green building material, renewable energy integration, robotics, and so on. So these are the main areas. And of course, for each of these, you may have a sub area. For each of the sub area, you may have a sub area. And it expands out like that. It expands out like that. So that is a scholarship map. This is a tool that can be used to mentor practice in terms of expertise and research. Okay. What is a scholarship map? Basically, a scholarship map is a structured representation of the department's research teams, staff expertise, scholarly output, collaboration areas, and strategic research priorities. It visually or structurally show how staff scholarship align with departmental and institutional goal. And this is the, your expertise landscape of the department. So going back to this diagram, I will be able to use this diagram to plan for my staff to go for the PhD. So if this is the area that we are lacking, then the staff that is going for the PhD, this is the area that you need to focus on, and then start discussing with the potential supervisors whether they can supervise you in these areas. So this is how the scholarship map will strengthen your research areas, will strengthen your teaching and learning, will strengthen your collaboration, will strengthen your consulting activities, and so on. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's look at the scholarship map. It actually maps out the key research themes or your areas of strength. For example, the Kuliah of Education, you may want to look at curriculum innovation as a main theme. STEM education, main theme. Digital learning. Engineering, we want to look at sustainable energy. AI systems, robotic business, entrepreneurship, digital transformation, and leadership. So these are the main areas, and of course you can then have the sub areas, and then you can have the sub areas. So these themes become the strategic expertise of the research pillars in your kuliah or in your department. And then next, you start identifying who are the members that are aligned to that particular focus area. Okay. Once I have mapped out the area, sub area, sub area, and at the sub area, I will have the name of the professor. At the main area, I have the name of the senior professor of that area, and this is where I'll be able to say that in this particular area, we have junior staff working on the sub topic, but we are lack of the main the most senior staff was just retired. This is now vacant. So basically, this helps by having this map. It helps you to identify expertise, research cluster, collaboration opportunities, and then helps you to appoint lead consultant and researchers if you are bidding for grants and all that. So the map would help you to do that. Yeah. And of course, in terms of mentoring, the name that appears at the area would be able to mentor the names that appears in the sub area. The name that appears in the sub area will be able to mentor the names that appear in the sub area. So that is the hierarchy. Then you can clearly see that you have this different age group or the different competency levels of staff within that area. And the mentoring can now focus mentoring in terms of development in the research area. Okay, the third part when we talk about scholarship map is it tracks evidence of research. Typical indicators is once you have that, towards the end of the sub area, you can have a box. How much publications have we produced? How many books, research grants, and all that? So this is one way. This is one way of deciding whether that particular area should be continuously supported or whether we should rethink of having that sub area. And our universities now we have very limited resources. What I do at my faculty previously was I look at that, and then these are the research centers. These are a bit based on the scholarship map, and then I will look at their contribution. If the contribution is not there, it's not significant, then I would ask myself, should I continue to use my resources to do this? Or should we say that this is a no-go and we just redirect our resources into other areas that can make significant impact? Yeah. And this is how I would make use of the scholarship map. Yeah. And then collaboration network. And of course, based on the scholarship map, and these days in the global environment now, you will be able to see that we sign MOUs all around the place. Sign MOUs all around the place. And this is where when you want to discuss with your partners, your MOU partners, you can put on the table, these are the areas that we would like to work with. Do you have anyone in your university that you can match us with them? So we can make use of that as well through the scholarship map. Okay. And of course, strategic research development, we can identify the people and the area to actually, identify emerging areas, plan for academic staff hiring, target major development grants and centers for or institute. So by having this scholarship map, if I have this scholarship map and then suddenly I look at there is opportunity for research being produced by CIDB or being invited by CIDB, being invited by outside Ministry of Higher Education, all these other agencies. From there, I can immediately look at the scholarship map and I can call up the leader of that area. This is an opportunity, apply for this. And I can be a bit more nasty by telling the leader is your KPI will be getting grants from this. So that if you have the center, you have the expertise, you have the strength, then you have the responsibility of bringing in grants. Yeah, you have and then once you have this direction, and then the group would have to work mentor, mentee together in order to achieve that. So in other words, you give them a project, you give them a task for both mentor and mentee to focus on and to work closely together. So that is on the scholarship map. Okay, example of scholarship map. Department of Education, you may have digital learning, and then you can have Professor A focusing on learning analytics, online pedagogy, Professor C looking at educational technology. So more or less, you'll be able to see the main area, a few professors there. The sub areas, you will see professors, associate professors. The sub areas, you may see associate professors and professors, and the chain of expertise goes up that line. Chain of goes up that line. So this is the tool that can be used to mentor in terms of research, consultancy, collaboration, publications, and so on. So why scholarship maps are important? A well-developed scholarship map helps the department to identify research strength, build interdisciplinary collaboration, guide academic staff recruitment and development. So this is mentorship comes in dekat sini. Align research with institutional strategy, support grant application, improve departmental reputation. Many universities use scholarship maps during mentoring of academic staff, program reviews, strategic research strategy planning, and also academic staff hiring decision. So scholarship maps can be used as a tool, to actually mentor your staff, not only in terms of teaching and learning, but also in terms of research, also in terms of consultancy, also in terms of collaboration. So my suggestion is, if possible, the kuliah come up with a scholarship map, and then you'll be able to identify who is who, where, and all that, and then the matching of mentors and mentees can be done in that manner. Right, the ecosystem. Oops. Right, the ecosystem, the 5 interconnected components, the faculty career life cycle. This is what I've said earlier. Training, earlier stage, you teach them on teaching, mid-career, curriculum development, research, professional certification, senior, academic leadership role, and then finally, they goes to the institute executive leadership. So at this stage, this is the relevant academic, this is the respected academic, this is the referred academic. I cannot read this. Okay, why scholarship? Okay. The ecosystem, Ecosystem, I got 5 points as well. First, the faculty life cycle, Center for Teaching and Learning. Okay, this is where the department responsible for organizing this for teaching and learning. And most leading universities establish teaching and learning centers to coordinate teaching innovation and so on. And typical functions is basically to conduct workshops, instructional design support, digital learning, and so on. And one of the things this webinar that you're doing is also a function of the teaching CTL, Center for Teaching and Learning. And then mentoring and peer learning. You need to have senior junior mentoring program, the matching, peer observation of teaching, academic staff learning communities, and cross-discipline teaching circles. So this is to improve innovation. And then teaching innovation scholarship of teaching and learning. Top institution encourage academic to research their own teaching practices. So in other words, there must be research on teaching and learning, not only research in the subject area, but in terms of the pedagogy. So I think sekarang ni kita ada grants from MQA focusing on teaching and learning, how to bring in how to see the effectiveness of work-based learning, how to see effectiveness of global incorporation of global sustainability agenda, and so on. So more and more. So if the external parties do not provide this grant, I would suggest that the departments discuss in the Senate to provide some budget to provide grants to do research on pedagogy, to do research on assessment, and so on. And we must also acknowledge publication in teaching and learning as well as a promotion criteria. And finally, the leadership pathway. Faculty develop ecosystem for academic leaders, typical leadership roles. Program director, you should be able to lead the curriculum delivery. Teaching fellows, promote teaching innovation. Deans, associate deans, faculty leadership, faculty level leadership, and then director for the teaching center. Then you're talking about institutional teaching strategy. So this is talking about the ecosystem. So I've mentioned teaching and learning. I've mentioned the scholarship map, and then also the ecosystem. And the final thing I want to touch is basically work-life balance. Work-life balance, in other words, we work in the university, we work in IIUM, and there is demand. There is demand imposed by university KPIs and so on. But we are also human beings with other roles. We are a father, a mother, a son, a brother, a sister, and we also have responsibilities outside the university. So we need to balance between the expectation of the institution and our personal and family expectations. And as you may recall my earlier slides, pensyarah manusia bukan mesin. Pensyarah berhadapan, 30,000 pensyarah berhadapan dengan tekanan. And what happens now is basically we spend so much time here. Our family time is only to go back and sleep. And the quality time with the family is missing now. So mentors should also help the mentee to balance the need, of work and also home. I find this concept very interesting. Dia kata dekat sini, imagine that life is a game where you juggle 5 balls. The balls are known as job, work, friends, family, health, and spirit. And you need to realize that the ball for job is made of rubber. The rest, they are made of glass. So if you drop the ball that is related to job, be rest assured, it will bounce back. Tapi kalau yang lain, the other 4, they will break. And on many occasions, as the Deputy Dean, as Deputy Vice-Chancellor, as Assistant Vice-Chancellor, sometimes I have to advise my staff. Ada satu contoh lah, this one example. The staff is positioned in Jengkel. The husband is in KL. So she has been asking for a transfer to come back to Shah Alam. And she is not the only person in that situation. I have about 30 because for civil engineering, I have 5 different campuses. And unfortunately, some of the families, some of the couples are separated. So she wanted to come back, but I could not fulfill her requirement, because if I entertain her request, what about the other 29? If I were to entertain the request, then I would leave those campuses, branch campuses, with inadequate staff. So I told her no. Biasalah, then the tears will drop and all that. And I tell her, as the deputy dean, my answer is no. But if I take the role of a father, my advice to you is to leave the service. UiTM is not the only university in Malaysia. Your passion for teaching can be channeled through other universities as well. So she took my advice, and then, Alhamdulillah, she got a job, a lecturer position in UM. And then later, she got a contract position in the UK, lecturer, and now she's in UTP. She's doing very well. So in other words, you can drop this, you can change, because it will bounce back. Because the reason she was crying is that the marriage was a bit unstable because of the separation. So as the deputy dean, I have to say that the position of the university is no. But as a person, as a father, this is my advice. So in other words, being a mentor, sometimes you have to take that approach. Yeah? So this is about work-life balance. Okay. I would go back to my first slide just now. You don't need more time. You need to have more focus. You need to prioritize and you focus. Don't try to do everything. You need to strategize, give yourself time. All right, in the next 3 to 4 years, I will become associate professor. Next 5 years, I will become professor. Don't go for, okay, minimum requirement 3 years, I can now apply. Minimum 3 years. No. Make sure that you achieve what I've listed out. Remember, the relevant, the respected, the referred. If you achieve those levels, make sure that you are strong in that level. Then you apply for the position. Yeah? And not just meeting the minimum requirement. Once you are a professor, you want to make sure that you carry that position with dignity. Yeah? Okay, concluding remarks. This is where, earlier on, I told you that my main purpose is to serve. My main purpose is to contribute. Yeah, and I will tell you why. I had experiences at the early stages of my career that changed my views towards becoming a lecturer. Right. Let me start with this. This is my personal experience. I graduated in 1987 actually. I graduated in 1987. I worked in Australia. I didn't come back because it was recession. But eventually in August of 1988, I came back. So with my bachelor's degree, I came back, and 1988 was a bad year. It was recession. Yeah? Recession, there is no jobs. And it so happens that we were staying in section 14 Subang Jaya, and my neighbor is actually work colleague. They work in the same office. My father and the neighbor work in the same office. They basically carpool to the office, carpool come back. They're very close. And one day, my neighbor brought his father to KL. The father was in Ipoh. Brought the father to KL because at that time, this was 1988. The eyesight. This is not the picture of the father. This is gambar hiasan saja. His eyesight was failing. Macam sekarang kita tahulah apa orang kata di selaput glaucoma and all those things lah. his eyesight was failing, so the son brought the father to KL to see a specialist. So since the father was in the house, next door neighbor, my father ziarah, and I just came back from Australia. My father ziarah, and dia bawa pergi tengok sama. At that point of time, I was working skim khidmat sementara RM400 a month with Majlis Perbandaran Shah Alam, MPSA. And we went there, and they were talking, and then my father asked the old man how he's doing and all that, pakcik macam mana apa semua. So they talk, and then finally my father tell the old man, "This is my son." Okay. At that point of time, I don't understand why my father behave in that manner. Whoever comes to our house or whatever, he will call me out. He will introduce me to his friends. This is my son. He just came back from Melbourne. This is my son. He just came back from Melbourne. I think I did not understand then. But now, as a father, when my daughters are successful, I feel proud. So I think that is what he was feeling. He just want to tell people, this is my son. So he introduced me and said that this is my son. He just came back from Australia. And this old man went silent. And then finally he asked me, what are you doing now? I'm sorry, I'm sorry for my expatriate friends. I'm going to have this conversation in Malay, but I will translate later. So he says to me, "Dok buat apa lah ni?" So since I was working skim khidmat sementara, temporary work, so I told him, tak ada buat apa, kerja sementara je. Kerja sementara saja. So I was telling this old man, I don't have a permanent job. It's just a temporary job. And then he went silent. And he says, semua kerja dalam dunia ni sementara. Tak ada yang tetap, tak ada yang kekal. So he tells me that there is no job, no position in this world that is permanent. All jobs are only temporary. What is important? Yang penting, bila orang bagi kita kerja, buat. Bagi amanah, jaga. Orang bagi tanggungjawab, pikul elok-elok. So what he tells me is this, there is no job in this world that is permanent. All jobs are just temporary. What is important is when people give you things to do, people give you tasks, do it to the best of your ability. When you are being entrusted with responsibility, make sure that you honor that responsibility. Make sure that you are accountable. That was the most powerful lesson that I had at the beginning of my career. Tidak ada kerja yang kekal. Semua kerja sementara. All the things, all the jobs, the position, the title that you hold, these are only temporary. What is important is that the title, the position comes with responsibility and accountability. On the day of judgment, will you be able to say that I've done this well? I've done this to the best of my ability. That was a lesson that I learned from this old man. It was a very powerful statement. Tak ada kerja yang kekal, semua sementara. There is no permanent job. All jobs are temporary. All titles are temporary. That was the most powerful lesson that I learned in 1988 when I started my career. Then this personality, he is still around. Tuan Syed Kadir Arjunid, he was then our deputy director of UiTM. At that time, wasn't VC, wasn't rector, it was pengarah UiTM. He's currently, he's now a professor, Professor Syed Kadir. And when I joined ITM, of course, we have our induction week. And towards the end of the induction week, we have this amanat. Amanat pengarah, amanat timbalan pengarah. And in his amanat, in his talk, he told us this. To be a lecturer, you need to have three things. Tuan-tuan, untuk jadi pensyarah, tuan-tuan perlu ada tiga perkara. Tiga ciri untuk jadi pensyarah. Three characteristics of a good lecturer. Number one, tuan-tuan mesti berilmu. You must be knowledgeable. I'm not worried about this, tuan-tuan. Saya tak susah hati tentang ini. Tuan-tuan semua ada master, tuan-tuan semua ada degree. Ilmu itu tuan-tuan ada. You have the knowledge, you have the qualification. I'm not worried about this. Number two, you must be able to deliver this knowledge at a level that your audience can understand. Tuan-tuan mesti boleh menyampaikan ilmu ini pada tahap yang boleh dipahami oleh pelajar-pelajar. Tak guna ilmu tuan-tuan tinggi kalau apa yang tuan-tuan cakap pelajar tak faham. There is no point of delivering at a level that your students do not understand, your audience do not understand. Yang ketiga, tuan-tuan, ITM ni besar. Pengarah Datuk Mansur, saya, Dr. Ahmad, tak mampu nak lihat tuan-tuan seorang-seorang. Kami percaya pada tuan-tuan, kepercayaan itu tuan-tuan mesti balas dengan kebertanggungjawaban. Your ITM is big. ITM is big. We cannot personally monitor you. And the third criteria a lecturer must have is you must be responsible. So the three criteria, you must be knowledgeable, you must be able to deliver that knowledge at a level that your students will understand, and you must be responsible. You must be accountable. So this is what this man has taught me earlier in my career in 1989 during the induction. And this third character here, Samsudin Nawang, he passed away 2 years ago. He's a technician. He's a technician at the faculty. I think it was 1990 or 1991. My dean gave me some work to do. He called me to his office about 12:45, almost lunchtime. And he asked me to do this, to come up with summary points and all that, and have it given to him in 1 hour's time, because he's meeting the pengarah. He's meeting the pengarah at 2 o'clock. And he wants to give this to the pengarah. And you know, my dean, this particular person, Arwah Datuk Saleh, he likes to give job to me. Last minute he will. And at that time, I was a junior lecturer. I dare not question why he does that. But later on, when I became, associate professor, dah lama dah sini, I asked him, Datuk Saleh, kenapa selalu dia bagi kerja kat saya ni? Selalu bagi last minute. Then he said, kalau aku bagi kerja dekat kau, if I give it to you, the job gets done. It doesn't come back to me unfinished. That's why I give it to you. So that was the reason why. So at that time, I didn't understand. I was just in the 3 or 4 years into my service. So at that time, 1992, 1991, we at ITM, we do not have individual computers. I had to go to the computer lab. Go to computer to type whatever that he wanted me to do. I've drafted and all that, so I got to type for him and then to print at the computer lab. And Samsudin is the senior technician in that lab. And it was lunchtime. The lights were off. And there were partitions, technician partition, about the 4 feet, 5 feet partition. So I thought I was alone. And I was, talking to myself, lamenting why he give me such short notice. Every time I want to do something quick, pass to me. Every time I was bad-mouthing my dean. And then suddenly this voice appeared behind the partition. Apa kau dah murmur to me? What are you mumbling, Suhaimi? Oh, you are here. I thought no one was in the room. Then I told him, the dean give me this thing, blah, 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 blah. I vented my frustration. He went silent. And then he asked me, did you apply for this job? How did you apply for this job? How did you apply for this job? So I thought he was asking me because he has somebody, maybe his niece or nephew wanting to apply for a lecture. So I told him, you fill out the form and then you go for interview or the whole through process. I told him. And then he says, so you did apply for the job? Yes. So if you apply for the job, kau yang minta kerja, sekarang orang bagi kerja, buatlah. You applied for the job. Now people give you work. You applied for work. People give you work. Bersyukurlah. Kau nak pergi Tubuh Duga itu, kau semayang hajat tak? Kau berdoa tak? Prior to attending the interview, did you pray? Did you make solat hajat? He asked me. I said yes. Then he said that your prayers are being answered. You ask for work. You ask for job. Now people give you work. People give you job. You should do it. Sincerely do it. So these are the three incidences earlier on in my career that make a tremendous impact on how I see myself as an academician, how I see myself as a person to make contribution, and as a person seeking, keredaan, looking for mardatillah, mencari itu saja. So, the blind old man next door, there is no permanent job. Syed Kadir, 3 ciri pensyarah yang baik: knowledgeable, able to convey at a level that your students will understand. You must be responsible and accountable. No one forced me to become a lecturer. I prayed for it. I applied. I prayed. So it is a prayer answered. This is God's gift to me. So I should do to the best of my ability. So this is just a fatherly advice to all of you. So that is why I said earlier on, the reason of my being in the university is to seek keredaan Allah. I want to contribute. I want to be able to stand on the day of judgment and say that with all the advantages that you have bestowed upon me, this is what I have done. Right? I think that's it. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation. Ashraf, I think we have a bit more time for discussion.
Yes, Prof. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah?
Yes, we do have for discussion, inshallah.
I will be happy to, I'll be happy to have the discussion rather than use up full time to make presentation.
Yep. So Alhamdulillah, thank you very much, Prof. Suhaimi, for the inspiring talk, as well as the very clear contents that have been provided at the level of individual, us as becoming as a mentor. And then Prof. Suhaimi mentioned also with regards to the scholarship map, which will be very much useful for the departmental level, even kuliah level, even the institution level. And then finally, the ecosystem that will support all of this, inshallah. And ending up with a very inspiring talk, real cases, which hopefully, inshallah, will also push us and motivate us to identify the correct direction and our niyat, inshallah. We've got a few questions already, Prof, in the chat box. Let me just...
Can you read for me, please?
Yes. So this first was... it was a bit it came a bit earlier, but I will read it back. This is from Prof. Suhaimi from Kuliah of Engineering. Economics. Is it necessary to achieve faculty leadership and executive leadership? In my little 26 years experience, only selected academics can achieve faculty and executive leadership.
Okay. In our career as academics, you can achieve leadership positions in various ways. Not everybody can become the Vice-Chancellor. Not everybody will be appointed to positions in the Chancellery. Some of you are very good at management strategic, strategic leadership in terms of university, higher education leadership and all that. That will be your pathway. You may plan, if you, for example, in my case, I was doing a lot of research and I get awards, the most promising researchers, the best researchers. I get awards throughout my career. Up to a certain point, then I was appointed as the Assistant Vice-Chancellor to Campus Puncak Alam, and then Assistant Vice-Chancellor to Development Facilities Office. And then I was appointed to Deputy Vice-Chancellor. When I was in Puncak Alam, then I realized that to manage the campus, to look into the well-being, I cannot be selfish to focus on my research. So that is the time when I decided that, okay, moving from work from now, I have to prepare myself to be an institutional leader, not a research leader. I was planning initially to become somebody leading that field of research at international level. Nampak tak? So at that time, I decided, okay, sekarang ni, I need to focus. I need to let go of the research and become a mentor from far, not a person together working in the lab with my students. Sebab saya di Puncak Alam, my lab is in Shah Alam, and I have a lot of responsibilities in Puncak Alam. So that means that I agree with you, not everybody have a chance to become executive leadership of the university, but you can be a very prominent, significant, visible research leader in a way that people cannot talk about that field without mentioning your name. That discussion menjadi tidak sah kalau tak sebut you punya nama. You can work towards that. Or you can be a leader in the subject area. Your particular, in teaching of learning, you can become leader. People will refer to you. Right, you see, I left my research area of expertise. I've gone into institutional leadership, and now MQA appointed me as their expert specialist for learning outcome and for MQF. So I now become a name that you cannot leave out when you're talking about OBE. Nampak tak? So you can become that. And you can also become a leader in terms of practice, consultancy. Ui, you tidak boleh cakap lah pasal nak buat engineering kalau tak sebut nama Faris, because Faris is the expert. Nampak tak? Or you cannot cakap lah benda ni in terms of architecture heritage without mentioning Razak. So there is a leader in consultancy. Mungkin Razak tak jadi VC. Prof Razak masih dekan ke architecture?
Now bukan.
lain.
I'm not stick. I'm not.
So your kuliah of architecture, if I'm not mistaken, when I was actively involved dulu,
before this was
Prof Razak dulu Prof Razak lah. So you can be leader in terms of apa orang kata university, VC. You can be leader in terms of your area of teaching, learning, leadership. You can be leaders in the area of expertise of research, consultancy. Banyak, cukup. There is enough cake for us to jangan duk berebut. Don't feel frustrated. Don't feel frustrated kalau you tak jadi VC. Oi, UiTM 9,800 staff seorang je jadi VC. Tu pun kadang-kadang dia tak ambil among UiTM staff. Dia ambil orang lain.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I hope I answered that question, Prof.
Yeah. So
ada lagi ke?
There's a few, Prof. So another one from Dr. Shaukat. Should mentoring be an official appointment, or it could just be something that you could do on a daily basis towards fellow colleagues?
It can be both. At the departmental level, I would strongly advise to make it structured. I would advise to make it structured. If I have been appointed to mentor certain people, but there is another person that I feel that I'm close to that person, I can also mentor that person when that person comes to me for advice. So kalau if the kuliah or the department doesn't have a structured approach, then you can take your own initiative. Take your own initiative in the sense that this is your amal jariah. This is what I want to leave behind. I remember reading yesterday on the social media, someone posted, a lecturer posted, dia kata apa? At this stage of my life, I no longer care what is my citation index, what is my age index. What I care is now, I want to be able to look back at how many lives I have transformed, how many people I have mentored, what have they become. Towards the end of your career, it is no longer the KPIs. It is the relationship. It is the life that you have transformed that is more important. So mentor yang bagusnya kalau ada a structured system in the kuliah, in the department, to mix to match the mentee and mentor, that is good. Kalau tak ada, then I would say that once you reach that senior stage of associate professor, bila kita dah jadi apa tadi yang relevant, when you reach to the respected stage, then you should have a mentee. Apalagi if you are at the referred stage, you must have mentees. You must have people that you say that I'm going to take this Professor Madhya and make him a professor.
Thank you, Prof. I'll just read comments. Dr. Said mentioned, Shukran for the excellent presentation and sharing. And then Prof. Khalid commented, wonderful sharing session of lifelong experience as a successful academic institution of higher learning.
Dr. Shah, just want to say,
please.
Prof.
To compliment Prof. Suhaimi. Prof. Suhaimi, I've been in administration and leadership for almost non-stop 17 years. I do appreciate your comment that because the idea used to be that, okay, busy man can do. So anything which I have to get it done, I always find out the person who always complain, there is no time anymore left for me to do any other things. So I know the guy is busy and he is the only who can do it. So always that's the way out. But is always also look at being as too selfish that other people are enjoying, especially in the government sectors, same package, same salary, same allowances, everything. But here again, this 20-80 ratio, 20% people do the 80% work. So these 20% people, you may have to take care of them for the faculty and for the institution and department to grow. But at what cost? I got the heart attack, I got the diabetic, I got everything. So all those pressure get absorbed to yourself, and finally you are the one who pay the price for all this. So when after retirement I got contract to work, my first condition to the administration was two. Number one, if you want me to work and contribute mentoring and preparing PhD students and the juniors, I'm ready for it. No admin job, please. Number one. What is the number two? Don't forget the number one condition. So this has been quite late in the life, but when you are used to working so long, then you cannot sleep without the work that you have to commit and do, whether supervision and mentoring and whatever, just name it. So a stage comes in the life, there is always a give and take. So that's where individuals are. Prof. Suhaimi, what he asked, I appointed him as head of the department when I was the dean of the faculty. And I think that was the first and last. After that, he never accepted the administrative position. But he's a very good academic, very good researcher, talented professor now. So perhaps it goes individuals to individual as well. I mean, this is not a question, just a feedback and to complement your sharing session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Khalid. Let me share this. Before being appointed to the position of Deputy Vice-Chancellor, I have I have this very a situation. I have a condition. I have a condition of very low blood pressure. Very low blood pressure means, if I sit down, I cannot stand up without feeling giddy. When I wake up in the morning, I have to wait 1 or 2 minutes and then sit by the bedside before I stand up. I suffer very severe low blood pressure. Then I became the Deputy Vice-Chancellor. Fortunate for me because I have extremely low blood pressure. So when I became the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, the blood pressure goes up, then I become normal.
Balance back.
That was a blessing. But then when I left, when I retired, I told the Vice Chancellor, you got to add one more condition to the criteria of Deputy Vice Chancellor. They must have low blood pressure. If they have normal blood pressure, then they will go high blood and then they will have apa orang kata, heart attack and so on. Prof, I think I appreciate what you're saying because I've seen this in many universities, especially in UiTM. The stress is quite tremendous on people who take up academic management position and academic leadership at university level. The stress is tremendous, and this is how I overcome the 2080 that you are saying. The 2080, only 20% carry the job. The other 80% are the quote and unquote normal government servants. And I take this as, the 80%, I encourage them to do. I ask them to reflect. But at the end of the day, they are accountable. And to make myself, at peace with myself, I say to myself, God will not ask me what they do. God will ask me what I do. So that is what I focus on. If this comes to me, then like I said, at times, Prof, to be honest, I ask myself, why is this all work coming to me? Why is the all work coming to me? And that is when I recall my colleague Samsudin. You applied for the job. You prayed for the job. You make dua for the job. Now Allah grants you the prayer. So do to the best of your ability. I can still hear his voice. So that is how I console myself, and I do that. And otherwise, then you will go back not able to sleep. You will suffer. I would take that because this is what God will not burden his subject beyond what he is capable of doing. So that is what I've done, and that is how I managed to be at peace with myself. And to my staff, let's say Muhammad is my staff, and he's being, not really putting 100%. Ashraf's not putting 100%. At certain times, he goes for morning tea for 2 hours. He goes out and do his own personal business during. And then when I call, and then the staff would tell me, but Prof, you only see the time. You see, you don't see, you only see the time when I'm not there. But did you look at my wakaf time? Outside office hours, what I do? That's Ashraf. Outside office hours, your wakaf time is where you give sadaqah. During office hours, when you are absent, when people want to deal with you, you are not there. That is mencuri. That is robbery. And the rezeki that you take, the salary that you take for that unaccounted time, that is stealing. You cannot pay back by staying back 2 hours because the 2 hours that you stay back is sadaqah. You cannot cover what you have stolen. And I take that approach to instill, conscience into them. And Alhamdulillah, sometimes it works, sometimes it does not work. When it does not work, then I will say to myself, even Prophet Noah, 1,000 years, not everybody listened to him. And what is Suhaimi? Suhaimi is nowhere near any prophet. So that is how I be at ease with myself. Otherwise, then the heart attack will come. Now at the age of 62, Alhamdulillah, at this point of time, doctor has not prescribed me any medication. Tak makan ubat. Kalau pening kepala tu makanlah ubat Panadol. That's it. But no tablets for heart, no tablets for diabetes, no nothing. What is important is you must be at peace with yourself. Whatever other people get, that is basically God's gift to them. So hasad, what is hasad? Hasad is you cannot be at peace. You cannot give your consent to God for His gift to other people. That is hasad. So what other people receive, they may do less than you, but they are being rewarded more than you. Then if you start looking logically, you cannot sleep at night. The only way to reconcile that is God's gift to him, and I redha je. And this is what God has given me. So take that approach, and then we have to learn to be at peace with ourselves. You know, this relationship of human with the Creator, human hablum minallah, hablum minan nas, hablum min alam. There is one more thing: the relationship between you and yourself. So muhasabah. So that is very important for both mentor and mentee. It is very important to have that. Okay, thank you, Prof. Khalid, for sharing. Yeah, at least I can share how I reconcile those contradictions.
Okay,
Thank
terima
you.
kasih, Bro.
Thank you, Prof. Hadik. Let me just go through the rest. Dr. Fuad mentioned, thank you for such a moving speech, Prof. And then Dr. Siti Harija mentioned, very valuable advice, Prof. Suhaimi. And later on, Dr. Mizan mentioned, thank you, Prof, for a very insightful sharing. Then Prof. Suhaimi again responded, only during Prof. Khalid as Dean, I had the opportunity as academic admin HOD. After that, no more, only recently as HOR. Thank you, Prof. Khalid, for trusting young lecturer like me. After all, never had any chance invited to be trained as academic leader at AKEBT. Only selected one being sent to ACAP. Only those being trained by ACAP can be appointed into academic and executive leadership. Okay. Oh, and then Dr. Irwan, now the KCA, mentioned I had never been invited to attend ACAP. Dr. Irwan is our recent director for KCA, our quality assurance now.
Ganti Liana.
Yeah, betul. So selected ones, right? I think that's all the questions we have. Anyone else? I'll open up still. If you have any questions or comments before we end, we've already only have another 3 minutes. Any more questions or comments? Okay, I think maybe there's none. Jazakallah, Dr. Karina mentioned Jazakallah, Prof. Suhaimi, for this sharing. Thank you very much, Prof. I think the 170 participants, that was the highest number, I think, throughout the session. Felt very much beneficial, and we truly appreciate the mix of very technical information and then the inspiring stories, which are truly motivational and inspiring, inshallah. And hopefully we can use this in order to cultivate an ecosystem of having that mentorship. If it's not being kind of structured as a KPI or whatever, hopefully it also brings us to the very accurate and correct direction, which is doing something that Allah's redha. And it's something that our position here is something that we've asked for, and hopefully we do our best. So these were the nasihat, the advices that was given by, maybe we can say, no, orang biasa-biasa, orang buta di sebelah rumah, Prof. But that was tremendously an advice that came from a pure-hearted person, and hopefully, inshallah, we can be inspired and be the best, inshallah. Dr. Nit Fatnun said, thank you so much. This is one of the best talks that I have ever attended. Dr. Nit Fatnun is a Dr. Pakar apa ya? Perubatan lah, Dr. Pakar perubatan in Susmek EU. So thank you, Prof.
Mungkin kita jumpa lah Dr. Pakar tu, tapi not in her professional capacity lah, sebagai apa?
Yes.
As a colleague.
Not as a patient, Prof.
Mungkin ada rezeki kita jumpa.
Yes, thank you very much. So, Prof, usually kita akan ambil gambar. I would like to welcome everyone to switch on your webcam. And I forgot, Prof Mira also messaged me saying that
Mana dia?
Prof Mira is another meeting, and Prof Mira now is another director for under Office of Strategic Institution and Transformation.
Okay.
So
Mungkin salam
helping
dekat
that.
dia. My regards to her.
Yes, I will do, insyaAllah. Okay, kita buka semua. Okay, semua masih dalam mood raya
Itulah
after
mau raya lagi.
Okay, so kita ambil gambar. Sister Hilda, can you please take the photo? Sister Hilda, are you there?
Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Another one. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I think with that, we once again thank you so much to Professor Emeritus Engineer Dr. Suhaimi Abdul Talib for having the time with us. Alhamdulillah, we have learned so much, and we pray that Allah grants you all the blessings, and inshallah all this becomes your amal jannah, inshallah. Thank you very much once again. Thank you to all who are involved with this session, and inshallah kita tangguh dengan tasbih kafarah and suratul Asr. Subhanallah. Thank you. Please complete the evaluation form, inshallah, for continuous improvement, and we'll send you and email you the materials as well as the recording, inshallah. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Irwan.
Thank you, Dr. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Tijani. Thank you. So we'll leave the session. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.